TechSabado is brought to you by MSI, the leading brand in high-end gaming. The Music Source, make your online streaming look and sound professional. Get your Mackie Pro audio gear from the Music Source. XSplit Broadcaster, a professional live streaming software. And Smart Communications, the Philippines' leading wireless services provider. Check the links on the description to avail our sponsors' products and services.
Teka.
Alright.
Kasama ang ating tech journalist na si Jing Garcia at Melvin Calimag. TechSabado.
Good evening po sa inyong lahat at welcome na naman po sa isang edisyon ng TechSabado dito po sa ating Facebook channel na TechSabado, and of course on our YouTube platform din, no, ng channel natin dyan sa YouTube, TechSabado din po. Okay, Jing Garcia po ng TechSabado.com, and of course The Manila Times. Tayo po ang Sunday Business and IT editor for that newspaper. At welcome po sa ating mga nanonood at nakikinig po sa ating sa programa for the past 7 years. Yay! Going to 8 na po kami this November. So patapos na po ang August, no? Naku, patay tayo dyan. Ano na? Bare months na po in a few days. Abot naman yata Tuesday, August pa rin ang Tuesday, no? Mamaya introduce ko muna bago kayo sumagot. Anyway, tuwing Saturday kasama po natin dito for almost 7, hindi lang almost, talagang for 7 years na. Walang iba kundi si Atty. Melvin Calimag ng
Newsbites.ph. Ayun.
Yes. Good evening.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Lalong-lalo na sa ating mga suki na nakaabang lagi tuwing Sabado ng gabi. Yeah.
And of course, kasama ulit natin ating continuing guest co-host. Walang iba kundi ang tito ng Martes. Tito Tribs. Nakamute ka.
Okay. Kasi nakasulat doon, the host does not blah 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 to unmute. Kasalanan mo, Ira, kanina pa. Magandang gabi po sa lahat. Raymond Tribino po ng Malaya Business Insight, motoring at tech editor po, at ng cleantechnica.com, kung saan na-promote po tayo kanina lang.
Congratulations. Pa-burger ka naman dyan.
Yes.
Tito Trips.
Tayo. Yep.
Anong bago mong position, Tito Trips?
Ngayon, editor for Asia Pacific, Japan, and Europe.
Wow, matindi. Saan ba base yung website na yan, Tito Trips?
Clean Technica is based in New York. Sa New
Oh,
York.
wow.
New York. You're so New York, Tito Tribs.
I am so New York. Pero hindi ako abogado.
You're so New York.
You're so New York.
yung clean tech, ano ba yan? About e-vehicles? O hindi lang?
Cleantechnical.com is America's biggest
renewable
energy and electric vehicles website.
Kasama ba Blue Energy dyan?
Yes. Yes. Basta all forms of renewable and new
Renewable.
Pero
Ano ba yung blue energy?
Kapareho lang ng green energy. Hindi, ngayon ko lang din natutunan yung blue energy. Doing a research on it. Ngayon ko lang nalaman yun. Pero matagal na pala yung technology ngayon.
Matagal na yung technology.
Ngayon lang feasible dahil sa yung it's water.
Correct.
Salt water.
Kaya blue.
Yep.
Salt water and hindi man clean water. Ang tawag doon yung regular water. Yung tubig tabang, pag pinahalo mo pala sila sa
Fresh water.
fresh water, yes. Fresh water, pag nagdikit sila ng salt water, yung in between no may energy pala yun.
Yes.
Wait.
Ang tawag doon sa blue energy, osmotic power.
Oh, yes. Parang pala yung may tapos na harness na nung araw 50s pa pala yun or 40s. Sobrang mahal nung technology na yun na hindi pa viable, pero ngayon daw pwede na. So ginagamit na pala yun ngayon, blue energy.
Blue energy.
Yung green naman.
Di ba yung green energy naman
Yan na yun, di ba yung ginagamit ngayon? Anything
is a term
renewable.
Anything
renewable.
Cover basta zero emission. Supposedly zero emission kasi wala pa tayong ang mga tunay na clean energy, dapat from the moment of manufacture, for example, ng mga solar panels, dapat green na, di ba? So, dalawa na ang sukatan. Yung isang sukatan, kapag na-generate yung power from a solar panel, yung pangalawa, yung mula the time that it is produced until the time that it is used, dapat near zero emissions.
Near zero.
so,
Ano ba ini-emit pag ano? Di ba yung iba water vapor? Emission ba yun o hindi?
Hindi. Basta yung emission, kino-consider na emission yung mga chemical residues, for example, from manufacturing. So for example, yung pag gagawa ka ng solar panel, gagamit ka ng silicon, you will heat it up to a very high temperature, it will emit heat, and then it will emit some other chemicals and so on para ma-produce mo yung mga solar panels. So ngayon,
that's the controversy, di ba, behind
yes,
the green energy movement.
correct.
Sabi nila na fake naman yan kasi it exposes some yung manufacturing and maintaining it.
Correct.
Nagkakaroon din naman pala ng pollutant. Pero ito nabasa ko recently, ewan ko kung ano nakita nyo, yung Germany kasi, di ba, Germany was was the forefront, especially Siemens, no?
Yep.
Was the forefront of maglev, di ba?
Yes.
Which the technology they brought to China, and China talagang minamaximize ng China yung maglev ngayon, di ba? Halos lahat ng trains nila maglev. Then suddenly itong Germany in-announce lahat daw ng trains na magiging hydrogen powered.
Hindi ko alam yan, ha?
Tingnan mo, may bagong news na nakita. Tapos nagulat ako, what happened to maglev?
Well, kasi hydrogen powered because maglev still requires electricity para ma-power yung mga magnets kasi electromagnet siya. So yung rail is essentially already magnetized. Tapos para mag-float yung trains, kailangan mag-generate ng electromagnets through electromagnetic coils. Kaya siya sinabi.
Yung pinaglalaroan natin nung bata tayo, diba? Yung dalawang magnet na yung ayaw magdikit.
Yung ayaw magdikit, diba? Papagalawin mo sa ilalim.
Yes. So ganyan yung technology na maximize na ngayon. China, grabe lahat sa yata ng train nila sa yung mga high-speed rails nila. Naka-maglev na ngayon.
Nakikita ko yung doggy mo dun sa likod. Tito Jing nag-e-explore.
Oo nga eh. Kasi makulit yan. Bago, attorney, baka batiin muna natin yung mga nandyan. Nga pala, bago tayo magpatuloy sa lahat na nakikinig at nanonood sa atin, alam naman natin gimmick natin dito. Post nyo lang po ang inyong mga internet speed sa ating comment section, both Facebook Live and YouTube channel natin. Post your internet speed, so para malaman po natin kung tama po yung speed na binibigay ng mga internet service provider sa atin. Kung mabilis man o mabagal. So kahit na kahit na tayo, ISP agnostic tayo. Kung PLDT man yan or smart na
nawawala ang train of thought.
Nadidistract tuloy ako. Smart, Globe, Converge, kung ano man ginagamit yun sa Netflix, sigurado ako nung Netflix, mga ISP ninyo. So, nyo lang, i-post nyo lang po para malaman natin kung tama o mali yung binibigay nila na speed sa inyo. Base po sa inyong base po sa inyong binabayaran buwan-buwan. Okay. Sige lang. Okay. And medyo lumalambing kasi ito, gaya gustong tumabi sa akin. Anyway, sige, tuloy. Attorney?
Batiin mo natin ating mga suki tulad ni Alvin Tingol na sabi niya ay PLDT 65 Mbps daw siya.
Okay. And
Tondo, Manila.
Okay, Tondo, Manila, no? Consistent siya sa 65 Mbps. PLDT home.
Si RG Espinosa naman, watching from Padada, Davao del Sur, avid at solid TechSabado daw siya. Good evening sa'yo, RJ Espinosa. Si Beck Jack Buckley, naku, tagal na nating suki ito. Si Vicencio Ortiz.
Radyo 5 days pa.
Si Cabo ng Weteng. Present po from Alcobar, Saudi Arabia.
Yes, so
Kingdom of Dati nung umuwi pa yan, pinasalubungan pa tayo ng maliit na Arabo tsaka yung dates, no?
Sarap ng dates na yan.
Sarap ng dates.
Dates. Si Joey Antakita naman. Good evening po mga sir. Present here in QC Converge daw siya. 104 download, 103 upload. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Oh, not bad, 104 download. Not bad.
Oo.
Ano siya ng
Siya,
Converge? Converge ba?
Oo. Converge. Sabi ni RJ, Tito Trips, magpa-burger ka naman daw.
Burger.
Oo. Mukhang dollar yung yung sweldo nito ni Tito Trips no?
Alam mo, yung sa Clean Technica, ang bayad sa'yo batay dun sa views mo. So, you're push to create interesting stories.
Kung sinabi mo kagad sa amin, click kami ng click dapat dun.
Oo nga.
Post mo yung mga link kasi sa natin.
Sige.
Sabado para
Correct.
Di ba mahirap yun, Tito Trips? Pero per click?
Yep.
Di ba mahirap yung gano'n?
Mahirap yung pero that's how I guess that's their business model.
Meron na po siyang $12.37.
Ayun. Pero pag pumunta ka ng New York, di ba, nandun ang sister mo, di pwede kang sumaglit dyan sa office nila, if ever.
Of course.
Bronx.
Di ba?
Bronx.
Si Renato Tranquilino.
Baka sa bahay
hello.
lang yun Yung isa sa mga editor doon, baka sa bahay lang niya
Sabagay. Baka walang office no? Ayun. Si Renato Tranquilino, nag-guest to sa Wag po.
Yes.
Kasi nag-launch siya ng book si Nato.
Kinausap din namin siya, isa niyang book, yung science fiction book niya. Sa Day. Yung bago siyang book.
Okay. Si Alex Fuentes, good evening po. Sabi niya ganyan, watching from the city of Smile, Bacolod City. Oy.
Woo!
Paano ba?
Bacolod.
Paano nga ba ang good evening sa Ilonggo? Alam ko Bisaya, yung daghang
salamat.
Ba yun? Hindi, daghang salamat. Hindi pa daghang salamat. Maayong gabi.
Gabi, Wow, gabi. Mga Pinoy hindi marunong maging mga local dialects, hindi man.
Maayong gabi.
Maayong gabi. Ayun, si Joseph Matet, good evening. So, nanonood siya. Sabi ni Renato Tranquilino, thorium nuclear reactors are cheaper to run and maintain. Siguro, he was reacting dun sa blue energy tsaka green energy.
Nuclear, gabi, thorium.
Actually, may lumabas na istorya about the Philippines having a new nuclear reactor after 30 years. Yung sa may PNRI, sa may yung egg, dun sa may Diliman.
Sa Diliman, tagal na dun.
Na nila, na salang na nila yung parang tawag nila RAD. Doon sa nuclear reactor. Pero it will take parang marami pang proseso na 2023 pa yata. Pwedeng matap yun as energy. Pero hindi to yung kasing laki ng ng
nuclear reactor, yung talaga
sa may morong bata. Ito more on research purposes.
Lang talaga yan.
Hindi siya for power.
Nung bata pa ako, nakikita ko ng itlog na yan sa sa UP,
sa may Commonwealth, di ba?
Nag-bike kami dyan, galing
fascinated ka sa itsura niya kung ano siya, di ba, nung time na yun. Kaya yun. Pati nadaanan niya pag dadaan ka ng Commonwealth, nandun yun. Ano ba siya? Natatakpan na ba siya ng mga bagong establishment? Parang hindi ko na masyado papansin ngayon. Pero nung araw kasi, talahiban yung...
Kitang-kita Kitang-kita, no?
Kitang-kita.
Until the 90s, ganun, hindi ba? Early 2000s.
Oo nga, parang from Commonwealth, parang di mo na siya tanaw, no? Tanaw mo siya
Oo. Dahil natatakpan siya ng mga Ayala development.
Natakpan ba siya ng Techno-Hub?
Ng Techno-Hub. Pero from a certain point at the Techno-Hub, makikita mo siya.
Okay.
Yan.
Batiin ko lang, good evening sa Dohelio family ng Silang Cavite. Dohelio.
Yung Philippine Nuclear Institute ba yan? Oo, tama, di ba? Philippine Nuclear Research Institute. So, nung bata ako, nagbabike kami papunta dyan. Tapos yung guard, niloloko kami, sabi, wag daw hahawakan yung pader kasi radioactive.
Oh?
Yun yun. Syempre, that's their way to keep us out kasi walang fence yan dati. Pupunta ka dyan, bababa lang yung fence niya eh. So parang
correct.
to keep you out.
Ako, di ba ako nakalapit dun eh. Never pa ako
Tapos,
nakalapit. Nakita ko, natatanaw ko lang siya from afar. From the road, yung Commonwealth sa highway.
Pero
oo.
ang access daw yata ngayon dyan yung bandang sa may Central Avenue.
Yep.
Yung sa may iglesia.
Yep. Sa likod.
Sa likod.
Okay. Oo nga, kahit nung bata ko, parang saan bandaan yan? Papunta dyan.
Doon sa may di ba yung may bagong gawang Eagle Broadcasting Center ngayon doon? Sa may antagos niya, Visayas Avenue.
Tama.
No, doon.
Hindi na ako familiar.
Yun. So, yung PNRI is being headed by Mr. Carlo Arcilia. He's a very, very good scientist from UP NIGS or physics. So, narinig ko na yan, magaling, napakahusay na scientist. So, if we can, kasi buong mundo naman gumagamit ng nuclear energy.
Correct.
Japan, China, France, US, everyone is using it. Medyo naging takot lang dahil nga yung sa Chernobyl tsaka dyan sa Fukushima. Pero dalawa lang naman yun out of thousands or hundreds.
Don't forget 3 Mile Island.
Yeah. 3 Mile Island sa LA.
Hindi mo LA.
Pero
sorry.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania yata.
Pennsylvania.
Ayun. So, it's otherwise, dapat sumabog ng buong mundo kasi lahat gumagamit eh.
Wala pang nuclear reactor na sumabog na kasi na para siyang atomic bomb nung pumutok siya, di ba? Kasi sa Chernobyl parang lang siya, parang because of
leak. Parang nag-leak, no?
Tapos yun sa Fukushima na because of the water, nawalan ng cool water yun, nawalan ng cool water yung mga rods.
Tsunami, that's a tsunami.
Yung problema kasi natin, alam naman natin, bara-bara tayo.
Sabagay.
Kung pwedeng gamitan ng rubber band yun, gagamitan ng rubber band para lang hindi masira. Ganun tayo. Madiskarte.
Yep.
We'll see. Masyado natin underestimate din mga Pinoy. Pero we'll see.
Pero sa PNRI, grabe yung mga research nila dyan kasi we don't see it. Pero yung pinakamahalagang research nila dyan is about health. Yung radiation oncology nila. Yung di ba ginagamit for cancer treatment and so on.
Yes. That's
Tapos,
correct.
Nung when we were covering for Greenfields, kami ni Ludi, na-discover ko na meron din palang ginagawa ang PNRI na agricultural research using radiation para labanan yung mga sari-saring mga I don't know how it's done pero mga sari-saring mga pests sa coconut, sa mango, yung mga ganon. Meron silang research na ganon. So matindi ang PNRI talaga. Akala ko nung bata ko, gagawa sila ng atomic bomb dun.
Pag nuclear, parang yun na lang gagandare, no?
Hindi. Maraming peaceful purposes yung nuclear energy.
Kasi yung power plant, kasi parang nagkaroon ng vision yung mga tao na pag sumabog, para siyang atomic bomb sa Hiroshima, yung ganun yung itsura, magkakaroon ng malaking, ganun yung i-imagine ng mga tao. Pero so far, wala naman nangyaring ganun.
Correct.
Pero, yung Chernobyl talaga, it's a dead area talaga siya, di ba? Actually may mga documentary lumabas na sa YouTube, no. Maganda yung mga documentary. Hindi na siya ang maganda doon, naging case study na siya not because of the nuclear accident. Siyempre kasama na 'yon, given na 'yon. Pero mas naging case study siya on how nature is taking back yung nawala sa kanila.
Yes.
Yun yung mas nag-focus ngayon, yung paano kinain ulit ng gubat ang urban area.
Yep.
Mas nagfo-focus ngayon dun yung topic rather than just kasi para marami na napag-usapan about napag-usapan yung leak, napag-usapan naging successful miniseries pa for Netflix. Tapos, syempre, pinakita lahat doon yung mga, pati mga, naging effect nito sa mga tao, doon sa city. Pero ngayon, mas nagfo-focus sila na how nature is taking it all back. Diba? Ganun yung nangyari.
Ganyan din Tito Jing nangyayari sa Fukushima.
Mm.
So, after Fukushima, kasi iba na yung levels ng, nung nangyari yung 3 Mile, tsaka nangyari yung Chernobyl, yung mga sukatan ng radiation at saka radiation leaks lalo pang tumaas. So sa Fukushima, dahil yung standards na gamit yung pinaka-latest, talagang sarado, walang bumabalik, bawal bumalik, and so on. Kahit na supposedly tolerable yung levels na ng radiation in some parts. So ang ginawa ng Fukushima City government, di na daw sila babalik to nuclear. Lahat yan, dinevelop into windmills and solar energy. So now, ano sila? Solar and wind energy capital or almost.
Oo, talaga.
Oo. No, ganun
Alala ko yung mga
nila.
accident na ganyan, o kaya even yung ano lang, yung scenario ng living around a nuclear power plant parating naantay ng mga tao na makakahuli sila ng isda 3 mata. Mga mutant na yung mga animals. Ganun yung parati gano'n eh. Yung visuals na pinapakita na inaantay ng lahat eh. Pero I don't think it happened.
Sabi ni Renato Tranquilino, sana hindi naman itapon yung spent rod sa Manila. Of course not. Hindi, may proper disposal yan eh. Waste management of nuclear waste is becoming a big problem worldwide. Oo, pero may ano dyan, may protocol na sinet yung UN Atomic Agency dyan for that. So, you cannot just dispose without observing the rules of proper disposal. Yan. Yan. Si Dean Aris Ignacio, sabi niya magandang gabi po sa lahat. Yan.
Ito si Seven Hosting. Babasahin ko pa ba yung kanyang
yabang o 6 saan?
Oo, 6.6 gigabits.
Akala ko ba ibaban na natin yan? Pagka, dapat i-cap, di ba? Sabi mo, Tito Jing, may cap yan.
May cap tayo, dapat 500 Mbps na. Ito, 6.6 gigabits.
Dapat,
upload.
Napakayabang nito
Dapat huwag i-announce, dapat cap.
Ban na to. Ban ko na nga to.
Ban na to.
Sakit ang ulo ko
10 gigabits, nahilo ako na numero, hindi ko mabasa eh. Yung Quest plan, 10 gigabits. Lugi pa rin siya, 10 gigabits pala yung plan niya, lugi ka.
Lugi ka ng
6 lang. Nakakuha niya.
Sorry, bayad.
Oo nga, 10 gig pero nakuha niya 6 lang. Yan, kayabangan mo.
Yan.
Mo. Kaya, yan.
6.6 gigabits. Ngayon lang ako nakarinig dito. Hindi na ako niniwala dito. Fake news yata. 6.6 gigabits per second. Upload niya 7.3. Pero ang kanyang download, 10 gigabits. Yan po, calling view quest of Singtel. Kulang po yung Paki-check po yung connection ni Seven Hosting na Singapore. Mga kulang yata ng 4 gigabits yung yung
padala nyo na lang po sa Pasig. Yung natitirang 4 gigabits.
Oo nga.
Distribute na lang dito yan. Distribute dito.
Oo, distribute lang tag-iisa sa akin na 1 gig, no? So, solid na yun, no?
Ano daw advantage and disadvantages ng nuclear plant sa Bataan? Sige nga, clean tech. Sige nga, sagot ka bago tayo magano.
Sorry.
Ano daw disadvantages and advantages ng nuclear plant sa Bataan?
Alam na natin yung mga sinasabi dati na it's on a fault line and so on and so forth.
At saka
totoo naman yan eh.
Yung naging kickback ng
tapos massive yung kickback, di ba? Tapos actually, when it was, nung tinayo siya, yung technology for the reactor was already old. That Westinghouse reactor was actually already old. So, yun yung Pero, tulad nga ng usapin palagi kasi sa nuclear, an amount of radiation, maybe the size of my fist, can power what, for example, I don't know, how many megawatts of power nang na-generate dyan, di ba? Doon sa maliit na amount of uranium na yon na pinapasok sa nuclear reactor. Di ba? So huge yung ano.
Pero
Hirap
pwede,
Sabi ni,
talaga.
pwede pa bang i-activate yung nuclear plant na yun? Di ba sobrang luma? Parang feeling ko yung technology yun, Chernobyl Di ba? Yung mga knobs, yung mga meter, ganun kaluma. Iba na kasi ngayon eh. Di ba?
oo nga. Di, kung sakasakali mang ano yan, checkin naman yan eh.
Oh.
Kung papasa siya, I mean, siguro ano pa rin naman, baka pwede. Pero it's up to the experts to
Yun na lang data
determine
center
that.
yan. Di ba? Ano yan gagawin daw data center.
Gagawing data center.
Ayan.
Pero ito kasi yung ano dyan, ang pinakamalaking problema ata dyan, kaya parang yun yung naging dahilan ng takot. Tinayo siya sa isang lugar sa Bataan. Ang pangalan ng lugar na yon, Mount Natim, which is a dormant stratovolcano.
Oh.
So, although hindi gumalaw at never siyang, di ba, never na nagkaroon ng ilang lindol na tayo and so on and so forth, never na nagkaroon ng galaw doon sa era. Kaya, laging sinasabi ng mga pro-nuclear plant activists, belat, nothing has happened since that time, di ba? Pero still, doon siya nakatayo. So, even our PhilVox pala, already said that place is, what's the term they use? Almost potentially active yung lugar na yun. Di ba? Yan. So, hindi natin alam. Hindi natin
alam kung kailan gagalaw yan eh. Kung pinatubo nga, hindi natin alam.
Yep.
Nagkalimutan nga na may na may vulkan dun eh.
Sabi ni Renato, sabi niya, Bataan Nuclear Power Plant was meant to generate 500 plus megawatt. It barely managed 53 megawatt. Ganun ba? Yun ang di ko alam. So,
kung 500 megawatt, ang gaano kalaking kalawak ang pwede niyang i-power?
Siguro buong Luzon, parang ganun siguro. Baka,
Not bad.
Ayun. Kaya nga, sana hindi ganun kataas yung natin, yung cost ng natin, tsaka hindi tayo kakaroon ng mga blackouts if stable yung natin because of nuclear power. Pero wala eh. Masyadong yung safety concerns mas nangibabaw.
Nangibabaw rin politika. Anyway, Jerry Conto, yun din yung tanong niya, masusuplayan ba ng kuryente buong bansa ng nuclear power plant? I don't think isang nuclear power plant, siguro mga 2 o 3. Per region siguro tig-isa. Pwede.
Per region.
Isa nga,
sabi ni Professor Rene Ledesma, si PNRI Director Kaloy Arcila ay taga-NIGS, yung National Institute of Geological Sciences sa UP. Sabi niya, huwag tayo matakot sa nuclear waste. Mas matakot tayo sa tira-tirang antibiotics na tinatapon sa sink and drain natin. It leads to bacterial resistance.
Correct.
Ewan ko.
Mas matakot tayo doon.
Okay. Pero hindi naman siguro dapat i-compare magkaibang level.
Mas natakot yun, antibiotics.
Maglalakad yung bacteria.
I know what he means. Pero yan ang 8:28 na po sa buong Pilipinas, Philippine Standard Time. And of course, yes, meron tayong mga ito na nga, pinag-usapan ng mga digital transformation, and meron din tayong mga nangyari this past few years na matinding digital transformation when it comes to tulad nito, yung streaming natin, and of course yung mga opisina rin. Correct. And they have to cope with the pandemic. And meron tayong pag-uusapan about tungkol dyan. And I think Tito Tribs will introduce our guest kasi mag-8:30 na, so pasok na natin guest natin para makausap natin and know more about their product that could actually help us in this continuing evolution ng digital transformation.
Continuing evolution. Lagyan lang natin muna ng konting context yung sinabi mo, Tito Jing, kasi mahalagang mahalaga ang naging role ng connectivity at saka digital communications, lalo na ngayong nung pandemic, di ba? So yung mga BPOs and so on and so forth, pumapasok sila dahil specifically because of the ability to, use these platforms to communicate. So gumawa ang Malaya Business Insight ng cursory survey before, right after the pandemic. I-reference ko lang din dun sa magiging discussion natin. Doon, ang mga tanong were, gusto nyo bang, do you want to return to work, meaning an office environment, what the BPOs are doing para ma-cope up yon, and so on and so forth. Syempre, if you're allowed to exist in a hybrid setup, you'd like to work from home. It's easier, di ba? It's less expensive and so on. But the BPOs, they feel na it might be or maybe their experiences during the pandemic, they were mentioning na it might be there is less control, there might be situations, di ba, na nagkakaproblema and so on. So yun yung mga gustong mangyari. So now,
sorry about that.
Let's open this. Pero eksakto yun, Tito Jing, kasi di ba malaking question yan eh. There was an article that came out in the Inquirer which really needed a drum roll like that. Kasi government was already pushing and imposing on BPOs na bumalik, magkaroon ng return to work, di ba? When in fact, yung hybrid setup, mas maganda, right? So yun yung situation.
Actually, ayaw na nga bumalik yata ng iba, lalo yung mga teachers, ayaw na bumalik. School.
So see, this is the situation. This is the situation. So now, we're fortunate to have as our guest, Mr. Lindsay Brown of GoTo Meeting. Yan. So let's bring Lindsay in.
GoTo Meeting. So pag-usapan po natin yung mga isang tool for streaming communication.
Call in na natin si Mr. Brown. James Brown. Ay, hindi pala.
Lindsay, are you alright?
Hi, Lindsay.
I'm here. Hey, Raymond. Hey,
hello.
Jing. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to TechSabado.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'll throw in the first question at Tito G.
Yeah, please. Please go ahead.
I'll throw the first question based on that, that earlier discussion about BPOs and all of these things that require the software that you have. How does GoTo Meeting, how does GoTo in general operate?
Yeah, sure. So let me introduce. So the company name is GoTo. So GoTo Meeting is a component of the GoTo platform, which we'll talk about. But we're a technology company. We're a cloud vendor. And there's two areas that we focus on, but we're very much focused on, if you think about business and the market that we're focused on small to medium-sized businesses, which I understand is a big part of the Philippines, right? It's accounts for probably a good 90, probably greater than 95% of the total firmographics there. So it's a big part of business that contributes to the economy. But we try to serve SMBs in particular, GoTo, when it comes to what we call essential business communications and IT management and support. What that means, and what that means to your listeners, is that our solutions are really, they're purpose-built around enabling employees to work remotely or flexibly, but then also cater to those preferences for a small business's customers as well.
Sorry, I'm on mute. When you say you're focused on MSME, so the solutions will go. The solutions are built for. Like you're correct, 98% of what Philippine businesses are. So
yeah.
So does it include what have you experienced? What businesses have taken up GoTo as a solution for their business?
Yeah, let me touch on that a little. So GoTo, we're not a new company. So we rebranded recently from our previous company name was Log Me In. And so we've got a good 20 years heritage working in the collaboration space and then also in the IT management and support space as well. And previously we were a company that tried to be everything to everyone. All right. And so we've got some really good experience, and we still do have a number of very, very large customers that you would say are enterprise, thousands and thousands of employees. And we know we sell to enterprise and they're happy to buy our products. But what we've found over the past few years is that small to medium businesses, they're a big segment and they're underserved. And they want to be able to they want to grow, they want to change the way in which they want to communicate with their customers. I'm sure you've been speaking about this a lot on your program as well, is that preferences have changed since the pandemic. So communication preferences have changed. A lot more people are online and they have different ways in which they want to engage with a brand or a small business. And we found that that's a real challenge for small businesses. How do they, for instance, combine their channels of telephone, their socials, so like their LinkedIn, their Instagram, their Facebook, and so on, and then also be able to communicate nice and easily with them? That's a big challenge. All right. And typically that's been solved by really, really expensive enterprise software. And what we figured out is that we've got the software that can do it. SMBs are underserved. So what we've done is we went through this wonderful rebrand exercise and consolidation of our products over the past 12 months. And we've brought together GoTo, which is really around those essential digital connections, which I spoke of. And we do that now. And I would say it's like at an enterprise grade, but now built for small business at a really affordable price. So you don't have to worry about the big cost of enterprise software, which can be scary for a small business for sure.
Lindsay, do we have the same definition of what SMB are? Because they might be different in Australia, and of course here in the Philippines, the concept of an SME is something like a sari-sari store or something like that. It might be very, very different. What can you expound on that?
So for us, an SMB, typically our sweet spot is anything sort of 250 employees or less. Is sort of like the small to medium sized business, which is, I think it's very similar actually in terms of demographic between Australia and the Philippines, right, in terms of that sort of size. So with, a big focus on those smaller organizations as well. We serve we serve like the small shop. It might be, 1 to 10 employees. Going into those medium-sized enterprises, 250 plus employees. And as I said, we can serve enterprise. Our solutions are enterprise grade, but we found that SMBs is underserved, and that's really where we think that we can add the most value, because the time to value for our products is really quick. It's quick to implement our products. It's something which it's like switching on a light. You can get your business communication set up or your remote support set up. So as a small business owner, you can focus on the business of doing business, really.
Oh, okay. So in your experience, I'll jump off from the question of Jing, kasi the definition now it's clearer for what you see as MSMEs.
Yeah.
So what are the pain points? What are the pain points that MSMEs have that you have a solution for? And the transition from office to remote.
Yeah, so I think we've seen a lot that's changed over the past few years when it comes to how a small business is challenged. And I think that probably falls into 3 main areas. The first, which we saw, which was just a result of the pandemic for all of us, for all business sizes, but really a big challenge for small businesses around business continuity. So we know overnight that a lot of businesses had to figure out really quickly, how do I now go ahead and make sure that I can keep running my business now that I'm in lockdown? Right, and that was a real challenge. And so there was a mad scramble to adopt technology and get that in, so a business could get on with making sure that customers could still make contact with the business, whether that was through their online platform or otherwise through their communications, telephone, whatever it might be. And then the other thing also was making sure employees were safe, they were productive at home and could still get a job done. And so, making sure that they're able to still operate on, whether it was a company device, mobile phone, laptop, or whatever it might be, or even their own devices as well, was really important. So, both those areas of business communications and IT support were a big challenge initially. All right. And then I think what we've seen over time now, and this is sort of what's come to be, I think, more of the new way that we'll see work moving into now in the future is now there's a big preference. I certainly have a preference myself personally, and I think what was seen in the research, I was looking at some of the research for the Philippines, for instance. There was something that was done by Cisco that said about 80% of workers now have a preference for working within a hybrid environment within the Philippines, right? And I think that's just that's a personal preference thing now, and that, folks want to have that flexibility to, yes, do their job, but then also have the flexibility, to be with their families and, have that time. And so there's a big shift now in terms of how employees want to work. And, companies need to adapt, because we're seeing, and we saw this in the Great Resignation globally, employers are otherwise going elsewhere if they're not getting their requirements met. The last thing is, I think it's helped build resilience, right? We've gone through these tough times and we've learned a lot, big and small business. And so I think now, thinking about going forwards, how small businesses, big businesses can adopt the right technology to allow them to support this hybrid sort of working environment is a big thing that they need to contend with now, and think about how do they engage not only their employees so they've got the right experience within a hybrid environment, irrespective of where they're located, but then also how do they now cater for customer preference, whether that be online or otherwise, through more traditional means, whether it's the phone or whatever it might be. So, so there's some real challenges out there, but I think we've learned a lot over the past few years in terms of how we can start adapting.
Okay. Jing, I'll just throw this question in, because as the explanation was, I see that there are two levels, or there are like, when it comes to MSMEs, I see two levels now. There is one which involves the employees, and the other one involves their customers. Is this a correct? This is a correct interpretation of what GoTo can do. I mean, the solutions that GoTo has.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you can, even our experience now is a great example of how we can communicate one-to-many within, and you think about that as, could be potentially like a company to many customers. Okay. So, we're running a webinar live streaming experience, which is great for a company and a brand to be able to sell themselves and market themselves to a broader audience. Equally, we could use the same technology that we are using now to be able to have an internal conversation, whether it's a meeting or otherwise a one-to-many conversation between employees. So you're absolutely right. It's about employee experience, and it's about customer experience as well, and I think that's a big part of essential business communications. All right, but then also it's making sure that you've got continuity in those conversations, right? And that's where the support piece comes in, to make sure that people can continue on with their work day in and day out.
Lindsay, there's other products offering this almost the same as yours. Can you differentiate? Can we go on to GoTo Meeting, or are you going to share some of your other products aside from GoTo Meeting?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to think about, right? There's a number of aggressive players that are quite familiar, I'm sure, to your listeners on the call, right? So there's I think on the surface level there's plenty of alternatives, and we're using an alternative tonight. I think where we're unique is one that we're focused. We don't try to be everything to everyone, right? So we're very much, as I said, we're focused on the SMEs, and we dedicate ourselves to making sure we address those pain points that I spoke of earlier, right? So building resilience in a business, making sure that there's business continuity for a small business as well, and then also there's time to value. All right, because when you think about it, as I said before, if you're trying to bridge those channels, if you're a small business and you want to have a telephone channel, a social channel, and you want to be able to also make sure that people can do their work in the remote home office, as a small business, that apart from your people costs, is probably going to be your next biggest cost. All right, and if you think about having a meeting solution, a telephone solution, a video solution, something which brings together your social engagement and then also your IT management and support, that's about 4 or 5 different recurring costs for a business. And, they have to think about then how they make those different investments. All right. And we saw that. So we saw that over the past few years when companies locked down, there was a mad scramble to go ahead and adopt a whole lot of technologies to allow that to happen. All right. But that's a big cost to a business. All right. So where GoTo is different is that we allow for those video connections. We allow for those IT remote support connections. We allow for those telephony connections and so on, but within a single platform at a single price, and it's an affordable price. So it's not about having to worry about 5 or 6 different tools. It's a tool that can be managed through a single uniform administrative portal, and that's quite key because it's then very easy. We say it makes IT very easy for a small business to be able to use and manage us, because small business owners are about running their business. They're not necessarily worried about having to think about IT and how that comes together and how that might work.
So based on that explanation, are we is this the reason why you decided to launch in the Philippines this year? And how about the rest of Southeast Asia?
So there's a couple of things. The reason why we decided to go ahead and launch in the Philippines was very much because it has and a lot of countries do. I mean, Singapore's very similar, Malaysia's very similar, Australia is very similar in terms of SMBs that are underserved in terms of how this has come together. So we've seen a number of proof points, even in the Philippines already, where we're getting a good understanding and seeing that the customers need these sort of solutions to be able to have these essential business connections. So we have an example of a customer that's based out of Australia, and then they have their call center based out of the Philippines. And basically they want to be able to make sure that the customers can engage with the brand. They offer professional services to their customers, and it allows them to be able to go ahead and offer this service to their customers. And the folks that are working within the Philippines are all working from home, so they're working with a remote environment, and then they can go ahead and obviously serve customers in a nice way. And they do that within in a varied environment, because we know the internet sometimes isn't friendly, spanning Asia Pacific in general. And so, that's been a great testament and proof point to us to know that we're in the right spot, because our customers that are coming on board tell us all the time that they weren't aware that they were in a position where they could consolidate their products and bring them together and have these two areas of collaboration, and allow for these business connections, and then also be able to support the employees in a hybrid environment at the same time.
Okay, so can I I'll ask I'll put you in a spot. I'll ask a question about
please.
application, because Attorney Melvin here has a law office, okay? And he also has a liquor store.
Yeah.
So how can he use your solutions for both businesses? Because your definition of a small and medium enterprise is less than 250 employees. Attorney, ilan ba empleyado mo?
2.
Ikaw? 2?
Ako, bali, 3 lang
partners
eh.
mo.
Yeah.
Tapos dun sa store mo.
Sa store ko, isa.
Isa. Di ba?
Isa dun sa law office. Di 3.
3. Okay.
So he has 3.
Yan. He has 3 employees, a fledgling law practice, and a liquor store. So these are small businesses. What would you recommend? Yeah, what would you recommend to him?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, right? I'm a small business owner myself, so my second job is working with my wife. We've got a small business, 20 employees, and we work within the health sector. And what's interesting, right, is that if you look at GoTo, in Asia Pacific, we're 100% officeless, all right? So we all work from home.
Wow.
Okay. If you look at my wife's business, she works in the health sector. All her employees are located in the office. All right, because the decision we made there is that it's usually better when people are face to face to have those sort of consultations, right? But what we noticed over the period of the past couple of years is that, as I said before, customer preferences have changed, All right. So they don't necessarily want to be face-to-face anymore. And in fact, we've found that whether inquiry is for GoTo or otherwise for the small business that I own and operate, a lot of people make just as much inquiry online via our website or via socials as they do on the telephone these days. They also want to engage that way as well and have the service provided in that way. So we use just as much web meetings and video meetings to be able to engage our customer base in a small business as we do field telephone calls that we might do at GoTo. All right. So just because a business might be fully on-prem or in the office, or otherwise remote, I think the important point is that even for Melvin's different businesses, he's probably got different sets of customers and they're going to have different sets of preferences. All right. And so where GoTo comes in is it allows you to simplify that process of engagement and bridge those different channels to make sure that a customer can always get engaged. And, you know, Melvin never misses a phone call. All right. When you think about what we are, we're a cloud solution. All right. And so a quite neat way in which Melvin could operate his business is that because it's a virtual phone system, all right, he doesn't have to worry about having 5 different mobiles if he's got 5 businesses, or 10 different mobiles if he's got 10 businesses. It's a virtual phone system, so you can have one virtual phone for his legal business, another virtual phone for his liquor business, and he's never going to miss a phone call, right? Or he's never going to miss that engagement when someone puts an online inquiry. And that's, you know, super important. As you know, for a small business owner, cash is king. We know that, right? And especially for where we are now, businesses, especially small businesses, want to make sure that they're viable in the market. Times are tough. And so being able to bring those solutions together at an affordable price is super important. Super important.
Yes, most of these online collaboration tools, their use spiked during the pandemic. Post-pandemic, I think we're entering that era right now. What are you seeing? What do you see will be the next step for this?
So we saw waves. All right. And so the first wave that we saw in the pandemic was obviously around, very similar to what we're operating on now, right? There was a big wave around collaboration. It's like mad scramble to get the collaboration tool you need so you can keep the lights on, all right, which made complete sense. Then people started to realize that, okay, we can collaborate, but is it secure?
Okay.
All right. And so there was a lot of things that we saw that were reported in the news around, you know, is this stranger now on my call, right? And, you know, there was, so certain alternatives were built for consumers. All right. If Jing, you mentioned GoToMeeting. All right. GoToMeeting's got 20 years worth of heritage. It's a business to business communications tool. So we didn't have to worry about our level of security because we've had security built into the product for years and years. All right. And so there weren't those issues. So yes, we had to scale up for increased demand, but the security was always there, right? We've been the pioneers of zero trust security, and then we've brought that into our remote support tools as well. But security was big. All right. And so making sure that the communications are secure, that you think about privacy as well. So, you know, we've got a lot of third-party certifications that are relevant for global. So, you know, we all know about GDPR, for instance, but then also some local regional considerations as well. So we've got a bunch of different certifications, and we've got a privacy website at GoTo, which is in the public domain, which outlines, you know, where we've really taken quite a serious stance on security and privacy. So that was really the second wave. And the third wave we're seeing now very much relates to what I was talking to before, Jing, is around, there was this big rush. And now a lot of small businesses, and I see this every day, we've got millions of customers globally, and especially small business said, we've got all these tools. What do we do with them? All right. How do we adapt now that our employees are asking for us to have this hybrid working environment, or otherwise they're going to go elsewhere? And now with the way the economy is, like I saw, for instance, that within the Philippines, inflation is still still rising. It's very much the same globally as well. And so, you know, that's tough, right? So there's this pressure around IT budgets. there's all these tools that these small businesses have, and they're really struggling to figure out, well, what do I do now? And so that's where we think GoTo can add a lot of value to a small business, is that we help with that consolidation, especially when it comes to the business communications and IT and support. So that's the third wave that we're seeing now. And, you know, that's been validated by the research that we've done with Frost and Sullivan as well. The job of the IT professional is way more complicated now because of you having to manage these tools. And if you're thinking about a hybrid working environment, I think of Melvin's business, right? He said he's got 3 employees, all right, for one of his particular businesses. So pre-pandemic, he may have had 1 office, 3 employees. That's a lot simpler than 3 employees and 3 remote offices. All right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so now you've got this, it's much more complicated for the IT manager. It's like, how do I contend with all these tools? How do I contend now with all this complexity of all these little offices where I might have control of the environment? It might be low bandwidth. Employees might be bringing their own devices. They might have their own preferences for their tools. It becomes really complicated, all right? And so, you know, this idea of having a solution that simplifies these things and brings it together is, you know, really the pain points where GoTo is trying to come in and help a small business.
So do you have a solution for that? For all of these, for all of the, like, security, privacy,
An end-to-end solution.
Yeah, an end-to-end solution for that in your portfolio.
Yeah, so we have on the IT management and support side, we have something which is called GoTo Resolve.
Yes.
GoTo
So
Resolve.
yeah, so GoTo Resolve is something which is a brand new product, but what it's built from is a good 20 years of experience that we've had across enterprise that now we can bring to bear on the SME. All right, so let me just sort of go through a few of the capabilities here. So remote access. All right, so remote access is, Jing, you've got an issue with, let's say, your computer. All right, so we've got zero trust based security. All right, and so we'd have to go through that exercise of establishing the zero trust first. So we've got a trusted connection between you and I, so then I can remote in and then help troubleshoot on your computer. All right, so you've got complete control over that. So remote access and support's big. All right, but you know, plenty of small businesses, they have also, they want to have, they've got off-network devices. So I can see there in your background, right? You've got a stereo system, and you've got, you know, probably a printer lying around and that sort of thing, right? Is that connected to the network?
Right now, no.
No. So what happens then? How can I provide you with support? I mean, I'm not gonna fly from Sydney to where you are anytime soon, am I? And be able to support you. But that, you know, but this is realistic, like, because an advantage might be, if I'm running a business from here, that you could be the perfect person for the job that I need to get done. All right. But how can I support you if I'm based here? Well, there's this idea of visual engagement. All right. And so GoTo Resolve allows you, for instance, I can work with you using your mobile device, make a connection with you, and you can use the video on your mobile device to show me what the issue is with your off-network gear, whether that's your stereo, your printer, or whatever it might be. All right, so I can also make sure that everything around you is supported and you can get on with the business of doing business. The other thing that we do as well is remote monitoring and management to make sure that you know, the devices that you have, whether you bring them yourself or otherwise it's a company device, we can make sure that they're managed in the right way in the corporate environment, right? Which is really important, for big business or small business, all right? So that is unique. So bringing all those tools together under the GoTo Resolve product is very unique. And as I said, that IT management and support is just part of the overall portfolio when I was speaking of those essential business connections and business communications as well. So it's quite a unique, and we think quite a compelling proposition to small business.
So GoTo Resolve, remote access, like for example in Malaya, we run completely on remote, using remote protocols, like for the editors to access the server and all of that. So all of these things can be brought together using GoTo Resolve. So like the editors can interface with each other. We do the story conference using a communications platform, or sometimes even just messaging on chat. and that's, these are like the new ways of doing work. So is GoTo Resolve a solution for such a situation?
So, so I think in general, like when you're talking about collaboration, for instance, what GoTo tries to be is something that fits in with a small business or any business. All right. So you mentioned, for instance, you might have a messaging tool, which is pretty common for the way that people communicate. All right. So if you wanted to use GoResolve, for instance, and have a means by which you want to raise an IT ticket, hey, it's Raymond here and I've got a problem with my microphone at the moment. So you could use something like Slack, for instance, and you could raise your ticket into GoToResolve. I would receive that, and then I can help you troubleshoot that using the most, the best available means, whether it's remote support, that visual engagement I spoke of, or whatever it might be. All right. Flip side of that is, it might be more of communication. All right. So you and I want to communicate around a document. All right. That happens in two ways, which you and your listeners are probably aware. It can be in a synchronous environment like we are now. So you and I can be on a video conference. We can share our screens. We can co-author a document. All right. There's plenty of solutions out there that do co-authoring, so we don't need to do that. We don't worry about that, but we have the video environment. And then you can be in an asynchronous environment. All right. And what I mean by that is that let's imagine that Jing couldn't attend our meeting today. That's fine. All right. We've got a recording, and we know that for your viewers and listeners here as well, they have a recording that's going to be available on Facebook and, at a later point, so they can go and see it. So we have a means by which people can asynchronously in their own time, collaborate, catch up. All right. And so, we have transcription services. And so if you wanted to document our conversation, all right, if we were using GoToMeeting at the moment, all our wonderful conversation would be transcribed. All right. We could take that and write an article from that, for instance. All right. And so, there's different ways. And so I think it's, probably based on the use case of the small business, but, GoToResolve can help solve that. And then also GoToMeeting could help solve that as well.
Okay. So judging, I'm looking at all of that, all of these things that we discuss and explaining it. I have two keywords. From this discussion. So the what GoTo Connect and GoTo Resolve does for the MSME is simplify things a lot and then provide a lot of flexibility. Is that a correct observation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all-in-one, essential connections for small business, business communications, IT management, and support.
Okay, perfect. Tito Jing, do you have a question pa?
I just want to just to ask about GoTo. It's based on Australia, right?
So GoTo is a global company. Yeah, so we've got, there's about 4,500 employees globally. So GoTo is headquartered out of the US in Boston. Originally, it was actually headquartered out of Budapest in Hungary when we first started 20 years ago. We've got, and
it's based on Australia.
Yeah. So I'm based in Australia. I'm in Sydney, and I think that a blessing of what we've seen over the past few years is we've been able to hire people across Australia. We've got folks now based out of Singapore as well, which has been amazing. So we've really been able to bring in talent now that we're a 100% remote working, and then we've got a fantastic team that's also based out of India across multiple cities. So we've got folks in Bangalore, Mumbai, and some other areas as well. So it's quite a strong team here in Asia Pacific serving the market.
And how could people subscribe to your products?
So there's a couple of ways, right? And I think for the Philippines, what we've decided to do there is we've got we work through channel partners, all right? And I think that's the best way in which we can work with Philippine small businesses, because channel partners, they know the small business demographic there, they understand how it works, and they can be able to go ahead and obviously supply those products within region, and then help make sure that the products are onboarded, up and running, and can integrate with the small businesses operations as well. So the best means is we've got a partnership with VCTECS, who's our core distributor out of there in the Philippines, which is fantastic. And they've got an enormous amount of partners there which serve and partner with small business. And so really a small business can just go to their preferred partner and they can learn more about GoTo.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Linz. That was Mr. Lindsay Brown. He is Vice President and General Manager. Correct me if I'm wrong. Vice President and General Manager for the Asia Pacific region, correct? Right? Of GoTo.
You got it. Thank you,
Got it.
Raymond. Thank you,
Thank
Jing.
you. Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Thank you.
Attorney, ikaw, wala ka ng tanong?
Thank you.
Ha?
Hindi,
Sa law office mo?
hindi, how do you define the product, Lindsay? Is it a UC? Is it a desktop remote access tool? How do you exactly define your product?
So from a business communications perspective,
Yes.
simple as using the phone or jumping on a website and interacting on on a customer's website and going through their web chat or socials or whatever. So that's it's messaging, it's phone, it's telephony. So it's your traditional business communications in the cloud. And then when you're thinking about the remote support and so on, the experience is different, but typically for an employee, they'll have their own messaging system like Slack, for instance. They can raise a ticket and they'll get their remote support. Or otherwise it can be proactive as well. And so what I mean by that is you might go ahead and call me up and say, hey, I've got an issue with whatever it might be, let's say your modem, for instance, right? And so based on that, we can then remote in and get that issue fixed for you as well. So it varies based on we work across all different devices, operating systems, all that kind of stuff. So really it varies based on the interaction, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
yes, thank you very much. That was Mr. Lindsay Brown, the Vice President and General Manager of GoTo for the Asia Pacific region. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, team.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah. Lindsay,
Galing.
Sydney, Australia.
Sydney.
Base siya doon, pero sabi niya, ang headquarters nila is in Massachusetts ba?
Oh,
Or
US, and of course, nag-start pala sila sa Budapest.
Hungary.
oh.
Sabi
Pero
nila,
ang galing no?
mura
Yung
daw
sabi
yung
nila
GoTo.
wala silang opisina. They're all
Standard.
remote. Yeah.
Mas mura daw yung
Oo.
GoTo sa Zoom, sabi ni Ira, ng $2.
Talaga? Yung access nila.
Oo.
Yeah.
Kasi nagkalat yung yung ganyang mga solutions.
Collaboration tool
Actually,
para for mga remote, mga ganitong ginagawa natin, tulad ng yung mga work from home, yan mga ginagamit nila.
kung mababasa niyo tong t-shirt ko, Ribbon Communications to eh. Ito yung yearly pinupuntahan ko sa LA. Ano to, Unified Communications Platform din to eh. So, kunyari, for example,
telco, di ba?
Oo, sa mga telco.
Yeah.
So, kunyari, di ba nga sinasabi ni Lindsay, may mga tao ka, pero ayaw ma-miss yung call ng boss o ng customer, whatever. Isang platform na lang yan eh. Tapos text, message, email.
Pati remote access, yung tulad yun nga, yung support, doon na rin sa platform na yun. Kasi
doon na rin. Oo.
Kasi nangyari ngayon, yung mga tao kasi may Teams, may Zoom, may Google Meet, tapos yung remote access iba na naman yun, may Team Viewer gagamitin for that. Yung maraming tools sa kanila para meron silang supposedly end-to-end products to minimize yung paggamit pa ng ibang security rin kasi yun security issues din kayo sa yung pag masyadong maraming iba-ibang tools ginagamit. So sa kanila, isang package of different tools that would have easier access nga sa online collaboration, especially for ganito nga mga meeting, mga online stuff na ginagamit ngayon ng mga opisina.
Oo.
GoTo Meet.
Parang naglalag ka, Jing. 11 o'clock na pala sa sa Sydney, kung saan si Lindsay kanina. Akala ko mga batang alauna o alas 2, lang pala. Alas 11 lang pala.
Pa siya.
To hours ahead lang ba?
2 hours lang ba? Hindi ko alam. Hindi yata.
Hindi dapat 4 hours? O baka daylight saving time sila?
Sila.
Naka DST siguro, no?
Yes. So, Lindsay Brown.
Sino si Lindsay Wagner?
Si Bionic Woman.
Okay. Ayun.
Kasi TV nun eh. Tony, yung time na yun.
Oo, hindi ko kilala yun eh. Yung mga lolo, yung mga nakakakilala niyo. si Jers Binarao, yan to, maganda sa atin. Good evening daw sa atin. Si Renato Tranquilino, Lagmi Inis and Food Brand.
Lagmi.
Sabi niya,
yung dating company, Lagmi naging GoTo na sila.
Naging GoTo nga. Pero expensive monthly cost of subscription ang ayaw doon ng mga SMEs yan. Monthly subscription doon.
Lalaki, Lindsay Buckingham. Yeah, it's from Fleetwood Mac. Lindsay Buckingham is lalaki yan kasi sabi natin Lindsay is a girl. Pero Lindsay Buckingham.
My second job is working with
yung salta ulit siya. Muted ako, sabi ni Raymond.
Si 3D from YouTube, sabi niya, good evening sa ating lahat. Ayan. Baka makalimutan natin.
YouTube siya, no? Si 3D, doon siya nanonood parati sa atin. Good evening, 3D.
Oo nga eh. Sinong 3D ba yan? Siya, kilala mo ba siya? Jing, natin, suki lang natin na suki. Si 3D.
Yan. Tapos, sino pa mga nasa natin? Iba na yung usapan ng UC. Remember, Tony, yung Unified Communications nung araw eh. Ano na, BlackBerry lang, tsaka ano eh, no? Nung araw, di ba? nung nagko-cover tayo ng mga Cisco noon, at saka yung mga similar products like that. Pag sabi ng UC, Unified Communications, ano lang yun, BlackBerry lang, tsaka ano lang eh. At saka Wi-Fi. Basta...
Uy, may ginagawang movie about BlackBerry. Parang The Rise and Fall. Alam mo, namimiss ko yung BlackBerry. Sobrang sarap mag-email, yung email on the go eh, no? Kahit saan ka, no?
Meron magandang
galing.
Meron napakagandang documentary sa YouTube ng BlackBerry, hanapin mo. Tapos ma-realize mo na throughout that time na in-enjoy natin yung BlackBerry, ang dami na pala ng problema behind it. Talagang yung kumpanya, yung especially nung lumabas na yung iPhone, hindi na naman gawin nila. Grabe yung politics, yung technology, kung paano nila nagkakandara pa na sila. Pero tayo nung mga time na yun, enjoy na, parang wala nangyayari. Ano na pa sila noon, talagang aligaga na sila ng mga time na yun. Talagang hindi na alam gagawin nila until to the point na they just sunk. Ganun.
It's like what happened to Nokia, no? Grabe, no?
Wala pa ako magandang docu, pero yung BlackBerry, may isang magandang documentary. Yung panoorin mo tingnan mo yung mga isa sa mga magandang panoorin na mga tungkol sa mga corporate na ganyan, yung mga rise and fall, yung Cold Fusion. Hanapin mo yung Cold Fusion sa YouTube. Ang dami niyang mga iba-ibang products, hindi lang technology, iba-ibang brands. Pero meron isang ang galing ng ginawa niya sa Bloomberg pa yata yun eh.
There was a time, pumunta ako sa US sa IBM conference yata sa US, lahat ng tao, BlackBerry yung gamit, Tapos di ba si Obama, kahit pinapagalitan na siya ng Secret Service, ayaw pa niya bitawan yung BlackBerry niya, no?
Nagkaroon ng BlackBerry for photos eh. Di ba? Kasi nga kailangan secured eh. Tapos yung makikita mo sa airport, please turn off your mobile phones and BlackBerry. Iba siya, iba siya considered na regular mobile phone device.
Kumbaga, para siya yung Nokia ng business sa may executives no? Parang almost 90% ang market share ng business communication. Siya no? Tapos ang Nokia naman, consumer, nasa 80%.
Yes.
Pero talagang sila,
wala
ginulpi sila ng
Apple
Apple no?
iPhone talaga eh, no? Kahit nasa
Okay.
Android, talaga iPhone talaga nagbaliktad ng mundo eh.
Oo.
Binabalik.
Talagang ang hirap kalabanin yung yung apps, lalo na yung naglabasa na yung ecosystem ng mga apps no?
Ganda.
Yun na, totoo.
That's
Tapos sinabayan pa ng Google.
tapos sinabayan pa ng Google na halos ganun din yung concept sa app. Talagang, tapos yung
Oo.
BlackBerry, they tried. And wow, wala nangyari. Yung, alam mo yung naalala mo yung first nila, yung first touchscreen ng BlackBerry, nandun sa documentary, yun talagang pinilit lang pala talaga yun. Talagang para lang may masabi. Pero talagang it is bad technology. It was a bad move, bad
Oo.
hack. Pero pinilit nila just to have something sa market. Kasi kung hindi, talaga may iwan talaga sila. Alam mo, naalala mo yung touchscreen ng BlackBerry na hindi siya yung katulad yung kailangan dumulubog pa yung screen para maging tactile siya.
Tactile feel.
Pindot mo, yung screen pa yung dumulubog para mapindot. Pero wala. Talagang, yun BlackBerry Storm yata yun. Pero wow, yung BlackBerry talaga something else nung time na yun. UC yung part ng Unified Communications yun back in the early 2000s. When they...
Sabi ni Nato, maganda ang security ng BlackBerry. Pero,
Oo naman.
Hindi sila maka-integrate sa network. Ano kaya ibig sabihin? Hindi maka-integrate sa network.
May sariling server yung BlackBerry. Di ba? Nung time na yun, yung email server.
Sila nagpauso yung BBM di ba? BlackBerry Messenger. Na ginaya ng Apple. Doon sa iMessage, di ba?
Message, mismo. Yung BBM talaga sumikat doon no?
Oo.
BlackBerry.
Galing nun, no? Inaano niya, no? Yung in-override o yung bypass niya yung text messaging. Di ba?
Yun yung unang OTP, di ba? Yung over the top.
Correct. Nagano siya using the internet, no? Galing yun, no?
Pero wala.
Sila yung unang
Talaga, iba rin kasi approach ng Apple Iba rin yung approach ng Apple talaga. Kahit na maraming galit sa Apple, magaling talaga rin Apple. 960.
Sabi ni Joey Antikisa, Jing. Request nyo na may, i-guess nyo naman po si Sir Lou De Vera.
Oo ba? Kung papayag siya pag hindi siya busy.
Busy mama no?
Back to normal na kasi karamihan ngayon Imagine yung TV. Hindi na pala. Naudlot pala yung TV5 ABS collab.
Collab no? Hindi, lang naman. Put on hold lang naman. Naka-post lang.
Ayaw kasi mapahiya ng mga ng mga buhay Ayaw mapahiya.
Kaya
Tampal sa kanila yun pag yung nabuhay na naman yun buhay naman yung ABS Imagine, napatunayan nga ng ABS na mabubuhay sila sa digital Gaya-gaya.
Content provider na sila Di ba? Magaling siya sa content
Sabi nga ni MVP, you have the content, we have the infra. Okay. Let's collab. You got the things, I got the looks, let's make lots of money. Parang Pet Shop Boys.
Sabi ni Renato Tapala, if BlackBerry complied with network integration rules, their security will be compromised. Imagine BlackBerry on Active Directory. Naku po, sabi niya gano'n. Sabi naman ni Jerry Conto, nakilala ang BlackBerry sa QWERTY keyboard at napakatibay pa. Totoo yan.
Yan, yung keyboard yan. Pero
ang tibay ng nila.
Tito Trips ba naka-mute? Hindi ba maka-unmute si Tito Trips? Ira, Tito Trips yata hindi maka-unmute. Pero kung nakita mo ba yung presentation ni Steve Jobs when he introduced the iPhone in 2000?
Pa-isa-isa yung yung features
ang galing explanation niya na why he got rid of the keyboard. 'Di ba? Ang galing explanation.
At saka stylus. Ayaw niya rin ng may stylus.
Tama yung sinabi niya na 60% ng face ng phone may keyboard. Paano after 6 months from now, pag may naisip kang app na bago na may ibang features, hindi mo na madadagdag kasi permanent na yung button sa keyboard, sabi niya. Ang galing ng explanation niya, doon pa lang bentang-benta na yung iPhone. Oh, nakamute pa rin si Tito Tribs. Ayun. Tito Tribs, di ka pinapasali ni Ira?
Oo nga, parang biglang nawala si Tito Tribs.
Ayun, nag-i-slow mo si Tito Tribs.
Ayun. May problema. Ano? Ba't ayaw magsalita? Parang, ano nangyayari? Slow motion ka.
19 sa buong Pilipinas, Philippine Standard Time. Para alam ng mga tao kung anong oras na. Kasi post-dinner na tayo Post-dinner. Ayan. Ay, malapit na malapit na ang September. Wednesday ba? Wednesday. Bakit nga ba ulit long weekend? Mga kababayan, long weekend po tayo. Bakit nga ba long weekend?
National Heroes Day.
Ilan? Sa Monday.
Sa Monday.
Pero Tuesday may pasok na, Tuesday, Wednesday. Hindi,
Yes, correct. That's
Number
correct.
1. Thursday o Wednesday? Thursday pala. 27.
Thursday?
29, 30, 31. Thursday nga September.
Thursday nga, oo.
So, ayan na po. Malapit na po magpasko ulit. Bare months na. So,
pwede.
Third year na tayo, sa pandemic na to. So, third year na. Hindi pa rin na-declare kung post-pandemic na. Mukhang hindi pa. So, ayan po. So, ingat-ingat pa rin tayo. Tito Tribs, hindi na mapagsalita, na nangyari kay Tito Tribs. Tito Tribs, sino Sino ISP mo dyan sa San Pablo? Ay, nawala. Nagalit, nawala.
Hindi makapasok
Nakapasok si Tito Tribs. Wala. Hindi mo papasok ulit. Ayan. Pumasok ulit siya. Nangyari. Sino ISP mo? Sumbong natin. Speaking of ISP, ito po yung ating poll for tonight.
BlackBerry complied with network integration.
Okay, ating poll for tonight. Gumagamit po ng mga ISP ngayon sa TechSabado. 53%. Consistent po na number 1, PLDT Smart, pagdating po sa panunood ng TechSabado. Converge, 18%. Globe, 6%. Others, 24%. So, yan po yung poll natin for tonight sa 4 pong nanonood ng TechSabado.
4.
Gawin natin 8. 4 sa kanila, naka-PLDT, 2 naka-Converge, tag-isa Globe and others. Hindi naman. Maraming salamat din po. Maraming nanood ngayon gabi. And because of that, dahil marami na po nanonood ng TechSabado, nagpapasalamat po tayo sa Unbox Content Network. Saan po tayo miyembro? Sorry. Unbox Creator Network. Ito mo, supply pa. Maraming salamat. UCN, para madali na. UCN. Yan. Para wala nasabit. UCN. So, tingin nyo po, karapat dapat kayo sa online. Contact lang nyo po ang UCN para po sa inyong mga content creation. Para kung naghahanap kayo ng mga talent mag-manage ng ng talent nyo sa social media at saka sa online. Yan po. UCN.
Parang sila yung parang talent center. Jing artist and Viva Talent Agency, parang gano'n, Sila yung ang mga talent nila, mga content creators, parang gano'n, Tapos sila yung
Star Circle, gano'n, di ba?
Oo.
Star Circle, UCN Ball. Si Tito Raymond, naka-mute pa rin, no? Ira?
No, ano ba kayong problema?
Ano nangyayari dyan kay, Sino ISP mo? Raymond? I-reveal mo na, great reveal.
The Great Reveal. Di baka mobile. Dati kasi nagmo-mobile lang siya eh.
Yes.
Nagkakaproblema siya eh.
Wala oh.
Ayun.
Naninigas lang siya nun. Hindi nakikita ng mga tao.
Ay, hindi pa natin nabanggit si Rory Visco. Yan, kailan kayo magla-live uli? Magla-live? What do you mean mag-live?
Live naman kami ngayon eh.
Live naman kami ngayon kakasama tayo sa isang studio.
Siguro.
Hindi na siguro mangyayari kasi wala na po kami sa
pero
radyo. Iniwan na po namin ang lumang
ayun, pwede tayo mag studio. May studio tayo magagamit in a few months time. May mga gano'n na tayo mangyayari. Yes. Ano dapat yan dapat broadband, high speed. Wala pa rin di pa rin makapasok si Tito Tribs. Bakit siya naka-mute? Mute niya. Hindi dahil mute siya ng app natin.
Viva Max Bigs daw tayo.
Nakalimutan ko kung pwedeng gamitan ng XSplit yung GoTo meeting. Wala sa isip ko. Yung gusto ko.
So, Winford Hotel. Sabi ata nung secretary ng WHO, hindi na raw mawawala ang COVID.
Ganun na nga.
We have to live with it. Yan na lang.
Parang part na siya, parang flu.
Correct. Ayun. Siguro, paalam na tayo, G, kasi wala na, hindi na rin makapasok si Tito Tribs.
Tribs, pwede ka ba magpaalam?
Wala hindi sumasagot
Hindi kasi. Sige.
Okay.
Sorry.
Salamat lang tayo kay Tito Tribs, si Raymond Tribino ng Malaya Business Insight. Maraming salamat sa iyo at sa ating guest kanina, si Mr. Lindsay Brown from GoTo. Yeah.
And of course, courtesy of Ardent Communications.
Okay. Maraming salamat. Ito po si Melvin Calimag ng newsbites.ph. Kita-kita ulit tayo next week.
Okay. In behalf of Tito Tribs Dino, maraming salamat po. Si Tito Tribs po, siya po ang tech and motoring editor ng Malaya Business Insight. Tapos mababasa niyo po siya sa kanyang pahina every Wednesday. Yan po. At syempre, host din po siya ng Today is Tuesday. So maraming salamat po. Magkikita-ikita kayo ulit ni Tito Tribs sa Martes alas 8 ng gabi. Jing Garcia po naman ng inyong lingkod ng TechSabado.com and of course the Manila Times. Huwag niyong kalimutan, Sunday Business and IT sa Sunday Times ng The Manila Times. Bukas po ng linggo kung saan survey po ng HID regarding mobile future-proof mobile solutions ang ating banner story bukas. And of course, tungkol din po sa tungkol po sa IFA ng Berlin, IFA ng Berlin, courtesy of our columnist Noemi Dado na nasa Berlin po covering IFA yan po yung kanilang tech show, kumbaga parang CES ng Germany. Okay, like at follow nyo po ang ating mga social media pages, facebook.com/TechSabado at saka facebook.com/newsbitesph. Sa Twitter din po kami at TechSabado at saka at newsbitesph. Sa mga nanonood, subscribe, like, and share nyo lang po ang ating mga programa sa ating Facebook page and of course sa YouTube channel natin. Maraming salamat PLDT Smart Group Corporate Communications Team for their continued support on our online shows tulad po ng TechSabado and Today is Tuesday. Thank you MSI Philippines, Maki at RCF para po sa ating audio equipment sa TechSabado and Today is Tuesday. Mabibili po sa The Music Source PH.com, locally distributed by Forerunner Technologies. Tandaan, hindi lahat ng nasa internet ay totoo. Pangalagaan niyo po ang inyong mga data at private personal information para po makaiwas sa identity theft na pwedeng gamitin sa cybercrime. Okay, keep in mind, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Respetuhin po natin ang karapatang pantao. Dito na po nagtatapos ang Tech Sabado. Hope to interact with you again on Facebook and YouTube next Saturday. And of course, this coming Tuesday as well. As COVID survivors, please wear a mask, stay home, stay safe, and take that vaccine. Pati na rin po ang booster, nandiyan pa rin po ang virus. Sabi nga ni Atty, according to WHO, we have to live with the virus forever and ever. Amen. Okay. Sige na, buo na kung buo sa virus. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Teka, TechSabado. Kasama ang ating tech journalist na si Jing Garcia at